Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first edition of Real Conversation, a video podcast talking about anything and everything related to Marvel, Star Wars, everything in between, anything that's happening on the TV, movie screens, all those things. But I'm Landon, aka known as Lando. I do multiple things in regards to esports content involved in the entertainment business, and I'm also joined alongside by my sister Savannah. Savannah, introduce yourself.
Yes. I'm an entertainment and travel writer. And you and I love talking about this stuff,
We
always
do.
have. And now we're kind of opening it up to our listeners here.
We are. Yes, we are indeed. And we're going to do our best to try and upload these on a number of different platforms. So if you're listening to this on iTunes and you're really confused because you're already listening to it and I'm going to talk about it, don't worry, because hopefully it's already up there. So goal is to get this on iTunes, Spotify, all kinds of different podcast platforms along with YouTube. And then also for anyone who's listening, you can feel free to check the description or just look up Real Convo on social media, because we're going to try to be on Twitter, Instagram, upload cool clips, talk about things, and try to get people, I guess you could say, kind of like more invested in the show, or kind of get their voice more involved in the show. I think it'd be cool to like do questions at some point. I think it'd also be kind of fun too at some point, Savannah, to like maybe have like people like send in audio clips of questions, so it's like we get like a personal sense of like maybe what they think as well. I don't know, just a few ideas.
I like that. I like that idea.
I think it
That'd
could
be
work.
awesome.
I think that'd be pretty neat. But anyway, a lot of ideas, a lot of things brewing in our minds, but we're very excited for the first edition. We have a lot of things to talk about. I feel like every time I'm on Twitter or social media in general, I feel like if I leave for a good 30 minutes, I've missed what feels like hours of content.
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah, I feel like Star Wars, specifically Marvel, just in direct movies, I feel like, I don't know if it's just given maybe the current moment that we're in it, given Disney Plus, given all these things where it's just now information is more readily available, or if everything's kind of picked up now that COVID has ended. Does it feel like that to you? Does it feel like this is maybe the first time, or not the first time, but more content is kind of released around shows and movies like this than we've seen in a while? This to me at least.
Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah, the news cycle is just insane. And I think part of it is COVID. I mean, 2020, basically entertainment stopped for the most part, except for like The Mandalorian, which had already been done beforehand. That was like our only saving grace, it seemed like, during COVID. But now everything's back up and going. Plus, we have the Disney Plus model where you have shows being released at the same time you have movies about to be released. So we kind of have that going on. And then plus, of course, social media is changing everything, continues to. So you can actually hear from directors and actors and artists. And so, yeah, it's like a perfect storm of content right now.
Yeah, and that's great for us. But at the same time, it can also be very overwhelming, at least from my opinion. Because like I said, I feel like I leave for a little while, or maybe I just have a day where I don't go on social media, or I'm not checking, all the regular websites and stuff. And I'm just totally lost. So with that, we've actually made a specific segment to try and cover as much content or headlines as we can, or at least things that we find interesting, things that we think that people who will listen to this will find interesting. We may not throw out everything that exists, but doing our best to try to cover as many things as possible. So this segment is called Headlines of the Week.
Hi, everybody. It's the first Monday of the new year, and it's time for headlines.
And Savannah, because of how wonderful that you are and tracking everything, I'm going to throw it to you to let us know what's going down.
Yeah, so there is a lot of news this past week, and a lot of news actually broke this morning as well. So we're going to kind of streamline it and go through that.
Yes.
So biggest story of all, of course, Loki finally premiered last Wednesday, June 9th, and its premiere release date shattered viewing records compared to WandaVision and The Falcon and the Winter Soldier and The Mandalorian. So that was huge. Also, of course, episode 2 just dropped this morning on Disney Plus. We're gonna get into that.
Yeah.
And following it dropping on Disney Plus then came out and said that from now on, all original Disney Plus shows will be released on Wednesday, while their movies will continue to be released on Friday.
Right.
So a lot happened this morning. Also this week, tickets went on sale for Black Widow.
Oh, are you going to see that? You're seeing that in theaters, right?
Oh yes. I was like, I like booked my ticket as soon as I saw that headline.
See, I'm debating on if I should go to the theater to see this or if I should test out, because I've never watched. What do they call it in Disney Plus? Is it Premiere, or I forget what they call it exactly? Like the exact
it's the Premiere. Yeah, Premiere option.
Access,
yeah.
Premiere option, something like that. I'm debating on if I should spend the $30 and watch it from the comfort of my home, or if I should go out to a theater, which I have many theaters that I could go to, but I'm debating on if, not that this movie deserves it, because it'd be nice to see a Marvel movie in a theater, but I don't know. I'm kind of back and forth on it.
Let me ask you this: if it was Shang-Chi, would you be on the fence about it, like you are with Black Widow? Like if it was Shang-Chi coming out, would you go to a theater?
I think if it was Shang-Chi, I think I'd be more willing to go to a theater, because I feel like I know what Black Widow's going to be. Maybe that's what the root of it is. I feel like I know what I'm going to get. I think a lot of people
feel that way.
Yeah, because and I know not to go totally sideways or anything on this, but I don't know. I'm excited for Black Widow. I've heard a lot of people say that they're super excited for Black Widow. Like, this is going to be great. It's like a movie that we've all been waiting for. And I'm like, is it really? Like, have we really been waiting for Black Widow history? And if she's not going to get brought back into the MCU, which she very well could, no one's actually dead, unless you've been gone for more than like 10 years from the Marvel universe. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how it pieces things together, because I know it's going to relate. I know, like Kevin Feige, everybody's talked about how the ending has changed, and that's going to kind of more set things into motion. But is it going to be because of her specifically or not? Because I feel like, again, I think this was supposed to be just a movie that was supposed to give her history. I don't know if it was always implied for her to be brought back. And if she's not, then I don't really know if I care nearly as much to learn about a character, their history that isn't going to apply, but I feel like they're really good at doing stuff like that. I don't think they're just going to make some random movie that doesn't make any sense, or not that doesn't make sense, but that it doesn't relate.
No, I totally get that. I'm excited for it, but I'm not as excited for it as I am the upcoming theatrical slate from the MCU.
Yeah.
I am curious, because I don't think they would make this movie unless there's a reason. And I guess I want to know what that reason is. And I love David Harbour from Stranger Things, so I'm excited to see him in the MCU. And then plus, I mean, it's just like a tradition for me. If there's a Marvel movie, I'm there opening night. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm excited. I'm intrigued, but I'm not nearly as hyped for it as I would be, again, movies coming out later this year. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. And this is something totally random. Or go ahead.
No, but I'm saying, hey, I'm going to be in theaters.
Right.
You want to try Disney Premier Access, and we'll kind of, we can talk about what you think the best value was.
Yeah.
So.
Because depending on the movie theater that you go to, honestly, depending on the state you're in, because, different movie theaters cost different prices. Like it could very well be $30 if I went and saw it with Ashlyn, and then also got like a little bit of food. But, I don't know. Yeah. It's
true. It's true.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we'll see. Well, when does it come out exactly? What was the date?
July 9th.
July 9th. Okay. So we have some time. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll go back and forth about it. But I was going to say quickly, I do hesitate though, because I was pretty much like set on going to seeing Black Widow just from the Disney Premier Access. And then, and this may not relate whatsoever, but I did watch Raya and the Last Dragon. And I feel like if I was in theaters, that movie would have been so much better, because it was visually awesome. And as much as I love my TV, because I think it looks great, I think that a theater would have made that more interesting and would have felt bigger. But I just feel like I just watched some random show that I've just never watched, or watched some random movie that I've never watched before. So I don't know. I'm kind of back and forth. I'm afraid that I'm going to regret my decision, is what I'm trying to say.
No, that's interesting. That's very interesting.
Because I was not a fan of the movie. Not that we're trying to jump on something else, but I was not a fan of that. And I feel like the primary reason that I wasn't a fan of it was because it just didn't hold my attention. And I feel like if I was in a theater, my attention would be held a lot better. But I don't think that's necessarily going to be the same problem with Black Widow. because I think that my attention is going to be fully on what's happening in that.
Yeah, yeah. I think question is, are those action scenes going to hit as well on your TV screen as they would in a theater?
Yeah. That's the conversation that I think that we'll probably have on and off for like the next few years on whether or not, can movies still be interesting to watch from your home as it would be to have a theater experience? Because, with COVID, obviously theaters were not nearly as used. Yeah. I think we're opening up something that will probably be a conversation down the line.
Agreed. Yeah, we're like in a new frontier of how you consume your content.
Yeah,
So yeah,
true.
And we're debating this and discussing this, and I guarantee you the studios are too.
Right.
So
well, hey, if you're listening to this, if you're on social media, now you guys can see our Twitters linked on the screen. Also, you can feel free to go to the comments if you're on YouTube and let us know, will you be watching Black Widow either in person on Disney Premier Access, or if you're just going to wait to watch it, feel free to let us know. But go ahead and move on. We'll move on past Black Widow.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
We're staying in the Marvel Universe, I think.
We are. So other news this week from Marvel, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania has officially begun filming. Paul Rudd went online and talked about that and confirmed that. Are you excited for this one?
I am. I'm very excited for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, which, not to get too heavily into spoilers in regards to Loki, but I think that there will be a lot of things, which I don't know how everything connects. I'm not as well versed on all those things. But I think that this movie will mean a lot for the MCU, or at least a lot will be set up for this movie to be a success. And I feel like a lot of people hate on Ant-Man. Like, I know that you've had this conversation with other writers and stuff. A lot of people aren't a fan of it, and I get it, because I think that Marvel has done such a great job at having different types of movies that a majority of people enjoy, but also having them relate to different people. And I like the typical action comedy.
Yes.
And I think this is what this movie is about. It was more about like, funny, enjoyable, like the quick laugh, and then also with like an interesting storyline, when reality, most Marvel movies are the opposite. It's more about the action with some funny, lines of dialogue here and there. And I like that change up. So I'm excited for Ant-Man, the third one, because I really like the first two Ant-Man movies.
I agree. I love the Ant-Man movies. And like you said, and very well put, Marvel has really plays around with genres and audiences.
Yeah.
And Ant-Man the Wasp is probably not for the same audience as you would say like Falcon the Winter Soldier. That went pretty more political,
right.
A lot more adult, but I still feel like they always put things in the Ant-Man movies that contribute to the overall story in a huge way. Yeah. So the name Quantumania has me really intrigued. So, and I think too, we could see connections between Loki and the quantum realm. I'm excited for them to explore that further. So I'm excited about this.
Who's confirmed to be in Quantumania? I want to say that's confirmed, right? Someone's confirmed to be in it.
Yes.
What's the name
Kang
of
the
the character?
Conqueror.
Kang the Conqueror, that's right.
Is the character.
Which I'm very excited about.
Jonathan Majors is playing Kang the Conqueror. I'm double checking myself really quick there. I believe that is the case.
Yeah, I just pulled it up. Yeah, Jonathan Majors.
Yes. Yeah. So, So there's that, and then our last Marvel story for the moment, until we dive more into Loki, is Guardians of the Galaxy game was announced at E3, and this made some major waves in the Marvel community, even for those who were not gamers. The game includes James Gunn's kind of classic rock soundtrack, a lot of the humor. It was a big deal. A big deal. And in addition to that, Vin Diesel, who was doing press for Fast and Furious 9, he came out and said that a future Guardians project is going to talk about Groot and him going back to his home planet. That also made a lot of news this week as well. So, and something worth mentioning too is Guardians 3 is not coming for at least 2 years.
Right.
But the Guardians are going to be in Thor Love and Thunder coming out next year. They also have a holiday Christmas special for Disney Plus coming out too. So there's a lot of Guardians kind of coming down the pipeline.
So, that's interesting. Yeah, which I coming from more of a gaming background, I was
Yeah.
watching E3 decently closely. It's not like my favorite thing to watch. I think this year was kind of more. People have different opinions on it, but it wasn't like the best, I would say, E3 that we've had, and for understandable reasons. But I was pretty surprised. I was decently impressed with what I saw from the trailer, and I think it'll be a pretty fun game. I forget the last Marvel game that came out, but I actually didn't play it.
Was
but I
it
had a
the
lot
Avengers?
Of fun. Yes, it was the Avengers. I forget what the game is called. I feel horrible for not knowing that. But I had a lot of friends who played it, and coworkers, and they loved the game. I feel like some people didn't give it a chance. And it definitely was a little wonky. I know we've had, the Spider-Man games come out recently, so I think the Guardians of the Galaxy spin could actually be pretty perfect. Like, it'd be a fun game. I think the single player storyline of it could be a lot of fun. And I don't know, I just feel like those characters in a video game environment, which I know it's not going to be the exact, like, they don't look like the same characters who play them.
Right.
But I think that still has the potential to make this really, really fun. So I was pleasantly surprised. I wasn't personally expecting a Guardians of the Galaxy game.
Yeah.
I think it could work well. I know there's a lot of fans. I'm not personally the biggest Guardians of the Galaxy fan. I know you're not either.
Oh no, I love Guardians.
Well, I feel like some people think it's like the best movie out, like in the whole thing.
Okay, I agree with that. Yeah, it's not the best, but I definitely like the Guardians.
Okay, I didn't mean
sure.
to mischaracterize you.
You're fine. It's fine.
But
just had to clarify.
I do have to say though, I'm not the biggest fan out there of Guardians of the Galaxy, but I am very excited for the game. Not necessarily going to buy it, but I will definitely watch people play it, and maybe we'll purchase it myself. We'll see.
Let me ask you: do you want to see a planet of Groots?
I don't know. I feel like that's a cool. It's a cool idea, but I feel like there's definitely gonna have to be some other characters involved, because it's basically just gonna be everybody. If he goes to his home planet, they're all gonna say the same thing. I am Groot.
True.
Or maybe like we'll learn some other things. I don't know. I'm not.
I know.
I'm interested, but at the same time, I'm also like, you guys got to figure out how we're gonna do this, because in retrospect, I think at first thought, it's like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then you're like, wait a second, how does that work? Like, how does the dialogue work? Like,
I'm intrigued on multiple levels. Yeah, but I think more out of curiosity at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Interested. We'll put it that way.
Things to think about. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
All right. So venturing away from the MCU for a moment, talking about a throwback here. Ferris Bueller's Day Off celebrated its 35th anniversary this past week, as did Jurassic Park with its 28th anniversary.
Wow.
And we love both of these movies.
Yes.
So they need to be acknowledged.
That's very true. Which I know we could both talk on Jurassic Park in a number of different ways, but I will say Ferris Bueller is one of my favorite movies ever. I think. I feel like it doesn't get as, like, if you talk about like best movies of all time, I'm not saying it should be like, up there with like the best of the best. And it's definitely like, made for like a certain like it's not going to relate to everybody.
Right.
But I think that it is highly underrated. I know a lot of people who have never seen Ferris Bueller or have not watched all of Ferris Bueller. And I think you should change that. It's really, really good. I'm very, very happy to say that it is one of my favorite movies after I watched it like 5 or 6 years ago, something like that.
You came to it a little bit later.
I did.
I think
I did.
Did I make you watch it?
You might have. I don't remember.
I probably did.
Probably
did. I wouldn't be a good sister if I hadn't. So. But yeah, definitely one of the best John Hughes movies out there for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Many quotable lines. And I know I was not alive whenever it was, done, but it's really weird to think that Ferris Bueller is 35 years old. I don't know. That's
I'm kind of uncomfortable with that personally.
Was it made like 35 to 2021, 1986, 85?
I think you're right. Let me check that because math is hard.
It is. 87?
Yeah,
maybe?
1986.
86.
86. Okay. Yeah.
I didn't realize that Ferris Bueller was that much older than Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was 7 years older. Okay. Interesting. Mm-hmm. Huh. But I love Jurassic Park as well. I know you're a giant Jurassic Park fan.
Huge. Yes. Love it.
We love it.
Also weird that
sorry.
it's 28 years. No, I'm just talking about how things are getting old, which means I'm also getting old because I was alive during the Jurassic Park phenomena. So
that's true.
That's a little odd to see 28 years next to that. But let's move on to that galaxy far, far away. The only really Star Wars content we're getting right now is The Bad Batch on Disney Plus. And episode 7 dropped last Friday with the title Battle Scars. And Captain Rex from the Clone Wars and Rebels made a triumphant return, and I was very happy about that. You love Captain Rex, right?
I do. I'm a very big Captain Rex fan. But I'm not going to lie, I haven't watched the last few episodes of The Bad Batch, and I feel bad for not doing that. And you can feel free to, talk about how you think it's going so far, all those things. I don't know. It's not holding my attention like I hoped that it would. And it makes sense. It's obviously, and I hate to say this, it's a cartoon in comparison to live action like Marvel stuff. But I don't know. It's not holding my attention the same way that I thought it would. I watched the first few episodes. It's just weird because it is kind of like, and it's meant to be this way because it's 16 episodes this season?
Believe so.
Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of filler, a lot of, moments, which for those who have watched, the regular Clone Wars, or if you watch Rebels, there's going to be times where you have a few episodes, and this kind of relates more probably to Clone Wars than anything, but there could be a few episodes in a row that are just okay, the only thing that we really learned is just slight character development, a little side story that doesn't mean anything. And this happened there was a few Mandalorian episodes where it's been like that too. But I feel given this kind of content that it is, it's just been a lot harder for me to stay interested in it on a consistent basis, or I'll come back and be like, oh yeah, that's what happened. I feel like I don't think about it unless I'm watching it, and I don't like that. But I will probably have a binge session where I'll watch the next 2 or 3 episodes that I haven't seen yet. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on The Bad Batch so far? As I know that you've watched every single one, right?
I have. I thought episode 1 was amazing.
Yes.
Episode 2, a little bit of a filler, but that's kind of to be expected. But I feel like ever since then, they really haven't wowed me the way I was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
After the season 7 of the Clone Wars, which was some of the best Star Wars you probably ever had, this was a little bit of a letdown. Not gonna lie. I'm still enjoying it for sure, but I feel like it pales in comparison at the moment. And something I'm concerned about is with Marvel having these short series where just 6 to 8 episodes and a lot is packed into every episode. Is that making Lucasfilm animation series kind of, how I say it? Should Lucasfilm learn the lessons of Marvel? Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Do we really need filler anymore? A 16 to 20 episode season used to be normal. That's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
And maybe it's kind of making Lucasfilm look a little bad in comparison. So it's just something I've been thinking about. So yeah, but it could pick up. I'm hoping it does. I was happy to see Captain Rex back. There's been a lot of hints towards Ahsoka popping up. So we'll see what happens. I do think that what we're seeing in The Bad Batch is going to play into the Ahsoka series, possibly into The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. So I'm excited about that. But I can't say the series by itself is impressing me the way that I hoped it would.
Yeah, I would say I'm kind of in a similar situation. And I have not watched all the episodes as of yet. We're barely halfway through, if not even halfway through yet with episode 7. So, right. we'll kind of test it as it goes on. And I'll probably, like I said, watch. I have a busy work schedule this week, but I will probably watch all of the Bad Batch episodes that I haven't yet coming into next week. And maybe we'll talk about it more. Maybe there'll be something big that happens in the Bad Batch that we can, dive deeper into it and kind of go from there. But it is what it is.
Hopefully so.
It is what it is. So what else we got? We also got some more Star Wars news. What, Book of Boba Fett?
Book of Boba Fett coming out this December. That's not really news. I think most Star Wars fans are aware of that.
Yeah.
But there was some news that came out about it this past week. For example, it's been teased that the series will include flashbacks, possibly, or center on the character's history from the original trilogy. So the thing with Book of Boba Fett is it's expected it's going to pick up where the Mandalorian left off. That post-credit scenes from Mandalorian season 2 finale show Boba Fett and Fennec Shand
Right.
in Jabba's palace. We kind of thought it's going to pick up from there, and it very well might. However, it still is going to include what happened to Boba either in the original trilogy or right after the original trilogy with Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. We're going to jump timelines, it looks like.
Huh.
I'm curious about that. I'm predicting a flashback kind of like a show.
Yeah, like
show
a style.
some like, yeah, show like Mandalorian, what's going on with that timeline, but then also show us maybe how Boba Fett survived that Sarlacc pit, because I think everybody's wanting to see that.
That's interesting. Where do you think this could fit amongst the other Star Wars TV shows that we've had?
I
should
think
say, what's
it's
its ceiling?
gonna.
What's its ceiling, you think?
It's a good question.
I know we have we have nothing to go off of in terms
Right.
of like we have no idea what direction it's going to take. We really have no idea other than the fact that it's called Book of Boba Fett. There will be at one point flashbacks, but I'm curious where you think this could rank.
See,
Maybe a
the
better
thing
question would be, do you think that it can compete? Because I know we always have this conversation about Marvel versus Star Wars, as much as we hate to compare them because they're not, by any means the same. But they have to be compared because they're both on Disney Plus. They're both getting released at the same time. They're both owned by Disney. It is what it is. They have to be, in some ways, competitors against each other. Do you think the Book of Boba Fett will, and I know that there's hardly any information to go off of, but given what could be a great, I guess I could say history, or given what could be for this series, given what we may learn about this series, do you think that it has the ability to compete with a Loki, a Falcon and Winter Soldier, what am I thinking? What am I missing here? Oh, WandaVision. I knew there was a third one. Do you think it has the ability to compete with those? Or if not, maybe be better than a few of those?
I'm going to be optimistic here, and I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
And the reason why is the Star Wars fan base loves Boba Fett. I think that Boba Fett and the Mandalorian, especially the episode where he took down all those stormtroopers, got fans really excited.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that. Plus, the Mandalorian proved that they're willing to dive into the original trilogy, with a Luke Skywalker cameo. If we are flashing back, could we see more original trilogy characters and moments? I think that would blow fans' minds, and I think that Favreau and Filoni are willing to go there. They know what fans really want, and I think they're willing to do it. So yeah. Plus, I will say this: there was a report out that the crew, the Book of Boba Fett crew, one of the T-shirts had Baby Yoda on it.
That's right.
So Baby Yoda it could be in Book of Boba Fett.
Interesting.
And yeah, so I think this show has legs. I think it really, it's going to rank up there. Again, we'll see what happens. No one really saw this coming. It was kind of out of left field when it was teased last December.
Right.
But I'm excited about it. There's a lot of potential, put it that way.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I'm very optimistic. I'm excited for it myself. I would say it's not necessarily my most interested series coming up. Like I said, it's kind of like, oh, okay, we're getting this. This is neat. I'll take as much Star Wars content as I can get, so I'm happy with it. But I am very interested to see how it acts. Will it be kind of like, again, like an extra Mandalorian season? Is it gonna coincide with that? Kind of take a lot of things from it, or will it be its own unique? Will it have its own unique purpose to where it is off by itself? With some ties to Mando and all those other things. So I don't know. We'll see.
Right.
We'll see what happens. But I'm very excited for Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's the one that I personally think has the potential to be the biggest outside of Mandalorian.
Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, with them coming out ahead of it and saying, "Hey, Hayden Christensen's back,"
right?
That got me really excited. He's not going to be a surprise cameo. He is going to be in the show, and they're leaning all into that. So. Yeah, that
could be their ace, if you will. They get a few good cards ready to lay out. Okay, we'll see what Book of Boba Fett could be. We'll see what Andor can be. We'll see what Book of Boba Fett can be. But Obi-Wan is kind of okay, here's the big card that we're playing, and we'll see how that goes. But I'm excited. A lot of like I said, a lot of good things. I guess you could say on the lineup still for Disney Plus, Star Wars, Marvel included. But
Yes.
you know, a lot of things to be excited for, and a lot of news that we're going to be covering. So,
Absolutely.
all right, I guess we can go and transition now into what I guess we're going to talk more about Disney Plus a little bit for the moment. Kind of, I guess. Kind of dive a little bit more in depth with the schedule changes to Disney Plus, because I know that you said this is from your opinion, from what you've seen from different news sites, everything. Everybody's kind of covering this. So essentially, the details are what TV shows now are on Disney Plus are changing to Wednesdays instead of Fridays, while the movies are still sticking with Fridays. Is that right?
That is correct.
So, I guess I feel like, now thinking about it, it does kind of make more sense, like, because it is kind of in the middle of people's week. I know from like a content perspective, a lot of people who kind of discuss these things Friday nights, unless you were like a dominant, like let's say like sports perspective, most sports do not prefer to be on Friday nights. Reason being is that you're competing with people who are going out, having it's of course the end of the week, et cetera, et cetera. Nearly the same thing with Saturday nights, but Friday nights tend to be the worst to try and compete with. So I feel like that does make sense. Like movies are a little bit different. TV shows where it's like, it could just be a random, episode, or it could be an episode where it's filler, things like that. It's not going to basically say, hey, would I rather stay home and watch an episode of this, or would I rather go out? And that's, I think, a good decision, because movies have, I think, the ability to do that, but I don't know about TV shows. So I think putting it in the middle of the week, having it on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, or Thursdays, honestly, just at any point through the regular week is a better look. And I guess maybe with Loki breaking records, I guess it's kind of like the perfect storm. It's like the perfect combination of like, hey, this is probably better overall for us. Meanwhile, hey, this show's doing so well on Wednesdays, maybe we just continue to do this.
Right. Yeah. I think I definitely don't think the Friday model of dropping like in the middle of the night for some of us and early in the morning for others of us was great.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a reason for it. I mean, Disney wouldn't do it if they hadn't like had 100 people strategizing on it. However, I'm a little concerned about them doing that now. And the reason why I say that is I don't think you can compare Loki's premiere to WandaVision's or Falcon Winter Soldiers or The Mandalorians, because for one, it's a different time period altogether. It's June. The other series have always dropped during a school year, for example.
That's true.
So it's summertime. So Wednesdays don't make much of a difference in comparison to Fridays for like kids and college kids, for example. So I think there's that. I also think that, see how I explain this. I also think that Loki had more promotional movement behind it. I felt like we were oversaturated with Loki. Like there was like a new clip every day, I felt like, or a new poster every day. So I feel like the promotional campaign was different. And I think Loki himself drew in a lot of viewers, because Wanda Maximoff and Vision, Marvel fans knew who they were, but they have never been like the reason why you went to a Marvel movie. Yeah. I would say the same thing about Bucky Barnes and Sam Wilson. Now that changed, of course, now because of the series, but Loki has been a major character since the very beginning of the MCU, basically, and a very popular character. So I think that also contributed to the number. So if Disney is changing up the release schedule strictly on those three things I've mentioned, I don't think that's that's not a reason yet.
An accurate representation, right?
That's it. Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
I agree.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think all the points that you do mention are very interesting, and I think that they definitely have the ability to be slightly inflated for sure. And I will say, I don't feel like you have to do this for every show. Like, I feel like just because, okay, cool, like, Loki's doing really well on Wednesdays, which I'm very excited about. I think just having shows in general in the middle of the week, honestly, just avoiding weekends outside of like Sunday are probably a good call. But I feel like, for example, I watch a lot of Disney Plus series. Like, I know you and I have watched a number of different ones, like
Right.
I know Mighty Ducks, Game Changers just ended out. Like, I like having, you know, almost like a collection of shows to watch, because there was at one point where I had 3 shows every Friday that I watched on Disney Plus. But I'm like, it'd be awesome if these were spaced out. Like, I love having that one day, but I also wouldn't mind a show on Monday. I wouldn't mind a show on Wednesday. I wouldn't mind a show on Thursday. Like, I wouldn't mind if it was spaced out. And I may just not know, like, again, the analytics, and obviously they have a whole, you know, group who, you know, dedicates what time works best. How do we release this? What's the best day? All, you know, all of those things. But I don't know. I just feel like for me, it would almost feel like I'm not going to Disney Plus as just like, I feel like it would almost diversify the app to becoming more than just like, oh yeah, like it's like a Netflix or a Hulu or, you know, whatever you really want to kind of compare it to, a Paramount Plus or an HBO Max. Like, it's different because I'm going to it every day, rather than going to it for movies and then occasional show that I watch on Fridays. Like, I feel like you could get people coming every day. And I feel like that at that point, then it becomes more than just which is a streaming service, of course, but I feel like then it becomes like your actual content platform. If you're able to visit it on multiple days and you're interested to visit it on multiple days, I feel like that's when it turns into something bigger than just like, you know, again, just this content that I go to every once in a while. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I totally agree. And yeah, that's a great point, because most of us tune in to Netflix or whatever streaming service when they have a debut, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But to have what if you could do a debut almost every day of the week? That would totally set Disney Plus apart in a number of ways. And so yeah, that's a great idea. I know we at the Direct, we covered that this morning. We're talking about how is this to make sure that Loki doesn't cannibalize the movies that Disney Plus is trying to release on Fridays. Yeah. And what's going to happen in 2022 when you've got multiple Star Wars series and Marvel series? They're going to have to get a better plan than just having 2 days a week. Right. Because if not, they're going to compete with each other. And the Disney investors, they're going to want these record-breaking numbers every time.
Right.
So they don't want to set themselves up in a schedule where they prevent each other from achieving these record-breaking numbers. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
yeah, maybe they almost, and I forget how it used to go. Like whenever we used to watch, like, you know, Disney Channel or Nickelodeon, I want to say there was almost like a day dedicated to when new episodes would come out. It may have been like on Fridays or Thursday. I don't even really remember. But I feel like almost if Disney Plus got into this idea, or not in this idea, but like invested in like, hey, and I'm just naming something off randomly, this would be way better than this. But it's like, hey, it's Star Wars Sundays or Saturdays, and it is Marvel Mondays. It's like you have, you know that, hey, a Marvel piece is going to come out on Monday because of this tagline. You know what to look forward to. Meanwhile, Star Wars is on a different day. And as you said, they're not competing against each other, because if everything's dropping on Wednesday, you know, I hate to break it, but you're not going to have the same, you know, people only have so much time. Like, you know, the regular person, let's say they work a 9 to 5, you know, they have dinner, they have, you know, if you're in college or if you're a student, like you have homework to work on, you have other things that you're doing in the regular side of the week, to not sit down and watch 3 different episodes of, you know, 2 episodes of, you know, this new Star Wars show, this new Marvel content. Oh yeah, this new movie came out, or no, or you know, there's another Disney Plus show that's coming in as well. Like there is, I think, an interesting setup, as you mentioned, coming very soon. And I think if they like kind of dive into like, hey, Marvel content, Marvel TV shows are coming out on this day, Star Wars shows are coming out on this day, I think that could work better for not just them, but everybody.
I love that idea. I love like you said, like Marvel Mondays, Star Wars Sundays. That would be great. That'd be awesome. And you could really lean into that with your promotional material too. Yeah. So, and maybe that's what they're going to do. Maybe they're just starting to move the pieces around now. And something else too.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. But Disney Plus it was introduced in 2019, I believe the end of 2019, but most of its run has been during the pandemic. How is this numbers going to shift around? People going back to work and going back to school, right? You know, they may be reshuffling for that purpose too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we'll see. I think it's, at the very least, it may not be everyone's favorite. Because I think that it's better for them to switch it to Wednesdays. At the same time, there are also negatives, but it very well could just be them just experimenting, you know, it very well could just be like an experimentation of like, hey, let's just see how this goes. And
Very true.
And that may be the best thing for them to do. But I think there's a very exciting, outlook on how all this could go. And I don't think that they will try and compete. I think, if we have Marvel, Star Wars, and again, name all these other shows that are going to be coming out, at some point, like your Mighty Duckses of the world. I know we watch Big Shot. There's all kinds of different things on Disney Plus that they're going to release that we don't even know about yet. And those audiences are going to want to watch all those other pieces of content. So we'll see how it goes. But I think we've covered this pretty well. Are there any other notes you have for Disney Plus, the maneuvering of dates and things like that?
See, I believe that's really the main kind of story from this week has been that, and kind of, again, the ramifications and kind of watching that play out. But I think that is pretty much it. I will mention Luca is coming to Disney Plus this coming week.
That's right.
And that's a big deal because it's a Pixar movie, so it's going to be good. And of course, putting Pixar on Disney Plus has kind of made people upset because usually Pixar in theaters was just guaranteed money. So why the Disney company thinks let's just put it on Disney Plus for free has been a really interesting argument in the entertainment world. But we'll see how their numbers do.
Yeah.
Here in a couple of days.
I'm definitely going to check out Luca myself, and maybe again, that could be something next week we come back and we cover it. That could be a movie that we break down. Let us know if you think that would be a good idea, and we'll kind of go from there. But I think the movie that the show that we've been talking about a lot throughout our top headlines, throughout the reason why the dates are changing with Disney Plus is in fact Loki.
I am Loki of Asgard, and I've been falling for 30 minutes.
As episode 2 has been released, you and I have got a chance to watch it, and it is fair to say there's a lot to unpack. I was personally taking notes while watching it for the first time, and it basically filled up an entire Google document page, and I kind of had to cut away, trim the fat, if you will, and just try to take away the biggest points that I could, and there was still a page of things to talk about. So I guess if you want, what we could do is we could kind of almost go in order of the episode, and try and give some thoughts that we have, point out some interesting things, and then overall just kind of summarize the episode and maybe kind of set up what the next episode could potentially look like. So I guess with that, we'll start things off with what we kind of begin this episode. For the most part, we won't cover every single thing that happens, every single storyline, but essentially Loki is now working alongside the TVA, basically coming into this. And I think we head to Oshkosh, is it 1985? I think
1985. That's
1985, right. Oshkosh, Wisconsin. We're at a medieval type of, I don't even know what to say, like a
Renaissance fair.
Thank you. That's what I'm looking for. And essentially, what happens, right, is that one of the TVA agents ends up getting taken by the Loki variant. And we don't really see her until the very end of the episode. And I was kind of like, okay, am I missing something here? and I know we'll kind of jump around a little bit, but we later at the end of the episode find her. I think what she's named C-20, I think is her official title, which sounds like a robot from Star Wars. So I'm just gonna go with C-20, I think, which is
I think they all have letters and number designations.
That's something I guess I haven't noticed. There's many things to point out. I guess I haven't noticed.
There's a lot of things to notice, so you're fine.
And not to give any spoilers away, but later on, which we will be getting into spoilers, of course, but not to cover the beginning and the end all at once. But they later find C-20, wrapped up basically in some random room, and all she keeps saying is the quote, "It's real." I don't know what that means. I don't understand. Do you have any idea what that could mean? I've been thinking forever. I have no idea.
I have zero theory on that, which is I'm disappointed in myself to admit that, but it's true. I have no idea. I'm very confused. I feel like the show has done a great job of explaining some really complex things.
Yes.
And there are a couple things you kind of can see where it's going to go, but there are just as many things where I'm like, I have no idea. I feel
like if I don't write down all these pieces of information, I'm gonna forget it later on. It's almost like you're trying to get, like, have you ever seen those TV shows or those game shows where it's like these people who are put in it's almost like a hurricane like simulator, and there's money flying around and you're just trying to grab as much cash as you can. I'm trying to grab every single little note, but I know I'm not going to get everything, and it like almost gives me anxiety, the fact that I'm forgetting little points here and there. So I'm like trying to grab that bill. Okay, this one's important, let me hold on to this. But I'm like, I know that there is, I feel like 50 to 60% of the show that I'm just not fully taking.
That's a great example. That's what it's like to be a Marvel fan this last week. Yeah.
I like I need to post a gif of like me watching Loki for bullet points, and I'm like, yeah, it's just not happening. We
need to put that on our social.
We should. Maybe that'd be our first tweet. Let's potentially
do it. I'd love it.
I think it'd be good.
It's accurate.
Also, we find out, so we have no idea what C20 is talking about, saying it's real. If you have any thoughts about this, like I said, feel free to tweet at us, feel free to tweet at the show, feel free to also put this in the comments if you're watching on YouTube.
Yes,
also,
please do. We need answers.
We do. We very much do. Then we also find out Miss Minutes is also like tangible, alive. I did not expect this to be coming, but like in the very opening, Loki's like basically sitting on his desk, and he can tell that Lady Loki is responding to him and moving around.
I don't know what to say about that. I mean, like, I didn't see that coming. I love Miss Minutes. I love that whole, like, she's kind of like the Marvel Mr. DNA from Jurassic Park, I feel like, used to break things down for us. But yeah, I wasn't expecting her to pop off the screen and pop back in like that. I'm like, what is happening? So
yeah. That was
I like it, but it's weird.
Yeah, it was very odd. Like, I'm currently on my screen, for those that actually heard the audio playing for just a slight second, I apologize, because I wanted to go back and just like see it, because it's just odd. Like, I don't know. It's a lot of things going on with the TVA that I just have I don't know how to explain it. I still don't understand. Let me see. So the next note that I have here is what TVA talked about pruning, which I thought this was kind of interesting. And this is more of a slight, like more of a little note, but that I think turns into a bigger one over time. Is the TVA basically expressed to Loki that they have pruned multiple Loki variants, and that there are more than any one variant. No two are alike. So they've caught more Loki variants than they have any other variant, and every Loki variant is different. So I know there's been a lot of people speculating. I know there's I forget what website it was. But someone had kind of released in the comic series, all the different Lokis that exist. There's been a lot of fan theories about, could we have Lady Loki? Could we have an older Loki? I know that there is this one comic book issue that has Loki, his name reversed, where it's Eichel. Like, there are a lot of different opportunities that we could see with variants, but I thought that was a pretty interesting note that they did mention that we've seen more than any other variant of Loki, which confirms that there possibly could be more in the show that we see outside of the one that we found in this episode, and that no two are alike. So we will not see, basically Tom Hiddleston multiple times on screen. At least we don't think that we will, or it won't look exactly the same.
Right.
And then what? Also, I just kind of mentioned this. I thought the episode overall, and I want to hear your thoughts on this as well. And I noticed this in certain movies and TV shows, and I forget the exact term, but whenever they're trying to show you a complicated way that a movie works. So like, let's say that this movie, like a certain movie is trying to explain, the concept of time travel, or the concept of like something that just does not make sense unless someone tells it to you. Shows or movies have a certain way of explaining, hey, like, this is how this works, or here is the backstory of this character really quick. I thought that they've done a very good job of giving background information on the multiverse. They've given very good explanations without it sounding like it. Like, I've definitely caught up on it. But like, I think
exposition is that you're referring to, right?
That's the exact word. I always forget it, and you always tell me what it is. But like, this episode, we learned what the the little beacons are that go on the ground. They're reset charges, and they did that. Why? Because Loki, of course, is trying to research how to become a TVA agent now. So they're having him research all these kind of things. I thought that was a good way to do it. But kind of on topic with that, the reset charges, officially, this is the official definition of what Loki gave based on the homework that he's done. They pruned the affected radius of a branch timeline, allowing for time to heal all its wounds. Very interesting verbiage there, but like I said, I think that the show has done a very good job of giving us all the information that we need.
I agree. I think it's kind of smart that Loki has no idea what's happening, just like how we don't know what's
Yes.
happening. He's kind of like our representation in the show. We're kind of just, whatever he learns is what we're learning at the same time. And
That's right.
and that really does help with this type of show, because Marvel fans, well, let's say this, the TVA existed in the comics, but for like the casual MCU fan who just knows things from MCU movies, they had no idea this thing existed.
Right.
And so there's a lot to digest there, like we've been talking about. So yeah, I agree. How they're explaining things is just expert level.
It is. It's very good. It's hidden yet purposeful is the way that I would kind of describe it, which I think is
well put.
nice.
Well put.
Yeah. And then I guess we kind of move on. Loki basically ends up going to Oshkosh. They're trying to, kind of solve this mystery, which is kind of turning into how this show kind of looks, which I think is funny with the jackets and like how everything kind of appears. It almost looks like it is kind of that buddy cop type of show that we all really like to watch.
Yes.
But we later advance to Renslayer's office. And it's kind of an interesting setup that she has in her office. She has all the timekeepers behind her. I think it's like a statue type looking thing, if my mind serves me right. Like it's kind of it's almost like they're all like in marble, like in 3 different areas behind her office.
Yes.
And there was some interesting dialogue that she had in the first episode, in regards to her talking with Loki whenever he was on trial for that time. And these were a few quotes that she had whenever Mobius was talking with her kind of about the situation, about the variants of Loki kind of roaming throughout. And she basically said the timekeepers are monitoring every aspect of this case. I've never seen them so involved. They want that variant caught. It's just odd. Like there obviously is something off. Like we know that there's something off with the TVA, but like just
Definitely.
the dialogue, which of course is intended, just sounds like she's covering up. It sounds like, we could obviously get into a number, and this will probably be, and I know she's actually listed as one of the main characters. Like if you go into IMDb, like she's one of the first 4 to 5 characters listed as one of the main actors for this show. So she will be involved, in my opinion, at least based off of that, and based off how involved she's been with the other actors. She will definitely be involved throughout a majority of the series throughout. But I think that it's interesting that she just kind of continues to speak on their behalf and continues to like discuss as if she knows what they're up to. Yet again, we know nothing about them. We know nothing about them. And also, one thing that's also interesting is that Mobius knows nothing about them either.
Yeah, something's definitely up there, and definitely up with her. I can't tell if she herself is bad or not yet, but she's hiding something, to be sure.
Yeah, like,
and
I don't know if she's hiding something big or if she also doesn't know herself what's going on. Like,
that very well could be.
Like, do you think that she has the potential to almost be like a secret type of villain? Because I feel like that'd be too obvious. But also, it wouldn't surprise me if she really doesn't know anything either. Someone's just telling her this information as well. I don't know.
Wouldn't it be great? This has popped in my head, so wouldn't it be great though if like one of the Loki variants was playing her?
That would be interesting.
I know, I just thought of that.
Huh.
But
yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
But yeah, something's definitely up. Haven't quite figured her out yet. And I thought it was interesting too, like Loki's questioning these things just like we're questioning these things.
Right.
And either that's what Marvel wants us to do so they can surprise us with something, or they really do want us asking those questions for what's coming next. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah. And so still on the radar, who exactly is Renslayer? Is she as involved as we think? Is she not? Like I said, we have no idea. And then basically as time kind of goes on throughout this episode, no pun intended with that, Loki is then assigned to I forget the exact, like what he's like. Basically Mobius says like, hey, look up some information on these variants, like, do some more research, go back to the drawing board basically. And he ends up finding this document about Asgard's destruction, and essentially he puts together, hey, because it is a Loki variant, he's going to think the same way that a variant most likely does, is that in Asgard and seeing kind of the description, which I thought was kind of interesting that the TVA has like death count, they have like time, they have like every single bit of information related around that, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yes.
And also he finds out that potentially, and in fact it is true, that this Loki variant is hiding inside of apocalyptic events, which again, like not anything that I thought was possible. It's just kind of one of the different directions that this show can go. Like there's just an unlimited amount of possibilities that this show can kind of dive into. But I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know if we took anything from that or not, but I thought it's just kind of this continuous conversation of why Loki is involved with the TVA, because he has these clues that no one can really explain or figure out, because of course the variant is himself.
Right. No, I thought it was super smart. For one, to have Loki kind of figure that out, which of course makes sense and kind of contributes to the fact of these variants do think like him, but also the Loki variant using time to their advantage to hide out, like explaining that and that whole concept, I was like really impressed by for some reason.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I'm curious now just how many other apocalyptic events they've been in.
Yeah.
If we're going to see any of that. And of course, we'll get to that here in a second. But the end of this episode now, I feel like has turned everything on its head as well. So
yes, it has. And I will say one thing that because knowing that we were going to do this podcast, knowing that we're going to do it for the future, I paused. I probably, like I said, this was like what, a good hour long, maybe a little bit shorter than like an hour, maybe 45 minutes of content. I guess you could include the credits as content, so like a good 54 minutes. But I paused it throughout, so much so that I probably spent a good 2.5 hours of like being involved with the show. And I did do some research, and you can do this research as well if you're listening, to go, and I know like Wikipedia is not always the greatest source, but they have some good information listed around the TVA's history in comics. And the reason why I bring this up specifically is that there is a moment where Loki basically goes to almost like a librarian type person who is, I guess, kind of looking also at information. And it's kind of a weird moment where I don't know if it's intended to just be that this lady's ignoring him, or if the fact that she's just not familiar with the like how human contact works. Now, the reason why I mentioned that is that in the comics, there are TVA desk workers who are known as I'm trying to think how to say it. Chronometers, something like that. Chronomonitors. That's what it is.
Here we go.
Big word. And they are actually created using, they are created artificially using quantum technology. Now, again, we know this throughout Marvel MCU history that at times they dive into the comics and take things, at times they don't. Like there's a big example with Shang-Chi right now, how, a lot of things that they're using, a lot of things they aren't. We'll see, how invested, how similar they can be to comics, how at times they're not. But I thought that it was interesting. And typically in the TV shows, I feel like they've gotten kind of more on script with comics to a point than they have maybe with movies. Maybe it's just because of how things work or because of how the comics at times can act like TV shows. But I thought that was interesting. And from the first episode, whenever we were meeting, I forget his official name in the show, but the guy who basically didn't know what a fish was.
I love that so much.
Who had, of course, the Infinity Stones in his desk, along with the Honus Wagner baseball card. I thought that it was interesting because they are monitors of the sacred timeline. So like that kind of describes it. I'm not sure if this character who I'm referencing in the second episode, who kind of acts as a librarian, would be defined as this, but it kind of follows the same thing of them being artificial, that they were, made kind of utilizing quantum technology, and they may not be like the same. I don't want to compare them almost to WandaVision of like how the people were real, but also at the same time they were under control. But maybe it's almost kind of a similar aspect. I don't know. It just seems like the people outside of Mobius and then the agents who are walking around just don't seem all there.
I think you're onto something there. I do.
And they were described, I never seen the comic books, but they are also described as being faceless. I don't know if that means like they legitimately didn't have a face, or if that's just another way of saying like they don't have personality. And that probably describes them more than anything, is that they literally don't have personality.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think maybe going the whole faceless route would have been a little disturbing and
Yes.
jarring for the show and for storytelling in general. But yeah, like again, not knowing a lot of basic things, not having a personality. Yeah, that very well could be. Along those lines, I'm very curious about Mobius, and like they even got into that in this episode about like where he came from,
Yes.
why he's there. I think that is something that they planted in these early episodes and they're going to explore later on. And I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, that's actually what I want to jump to quick, because I feel like that was one of the more interesting moments. Probably
Yes.
for the sake of the series, it was one of the more interesting moments whenever Mobius and Loki are talking. And I did, as per usual, took a few quotes from this, just because I feel like quotes kind of set up, you know, at times little moments, little things that you can kind of hang on to. And you know, Mobius used quotes like how this is kind of his own, he said, my own glorious purpose, which of course is the same title that we had in the first episode. He said the TVA is real because I believe that it's real. He had a number of different like interesting moments where it was just kind of like, you know, I was created by the Timekeepers, at least that's what I think. I'm kind of in this universe, and Loki basically questioned, much like we are, you know, what happens in the end, which I thought was a great question. And I think that was like
Yes.
the defined question of what everyone is asking. Like, what happens if you keep intact the sacred timeline? Like, what happens when your goal is over? Like, what happens once things are sorted? And Mobius just says, hey, you know, we'll meet in peace at the end of time. It's like, what does that mean? Like, it's almost like it has I don't want to say like a religious type of sense to it, but it's almost like it has,
They're exploring the themes of faith and trust a little bit.
That's
Yeah.
that's a good way to say it.
Because like Loki questions everything.
Right.
And Mobius doesn't. And that's a kind of cool contrast for their two characters.
I agree. But again, there's not really too much you can take from it, because it's like, I know this means something, but I don't know what it means.
Right. They're setting it up. They're setting
definitely
things
are.
up.
So I'm sure that will be probably a like it's like a good 3 to 4 minute scene that we'll probably revisit at another episode, maybe in the next one, and we'll be like, oh, that's what he was talking about, or that's how that connects, all of those wonderful things. And then the show, so they basically, they go to what was it? I think they go to Pompeii, right, at one point.
To test Loki's theory about the apocalyptic events.
Correct. And then we find ourselves, because of another tracked event, we find ourselves in Haven Hills, Alabama, in the year 2050, where, and I think you actually told me this. There's like speculation that in the future, I don't know if this is like actually like talked about, or if it's just more of like a cinema conversation about how there'll be like hurricanes.
There's been a lot of studies done on like what the weather patterns are going to be in the future.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's even touched on a little bit in the episode. I noticed watching episode 2 over again this morning, that Loki mentions like this horrible thing happened in like 2049. Another thing happened in like 2050 something.
Yeah.
And they center on the year 2050. So it seems like I think science predicts a lot of horrible things then, and they kind of picked up on that on the show, which was really interesting.
Yeah, agreed. And essentially they go to I want to say it's kind of like a Walmart of the future called Roxcart. I think, right? That's what it's called.
Yeah, I actually did a piece on this. Roxcart looks to be like a spin on the Marvel company, the Roxxon Corporation.
Oh, okay.
And it's actually in the background of things in all 3 Iron Man movies. And it was also like an Easter egg and even a plot device, I believe, in like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Agent Carter, all those Marvel-based TV shows. And but I think Roxcart is like a spin-off of that. The Roxxon Corporation had multiple like divisions. This could be like I refer to it as like Walmart meets Amazon kind of a thing of the future.
Yeah, I can get that. Makes sense. So essentially we find ourselves in Roxcart, and everyone's trying to figure out, because we believe that the Loki variant is here. And we find out kind of and this is a scene that I feel like we find in pretty much every single cop type TV show, where it's like, oh, the evil villain happens to have multiple screens. They find themselves like, in the control tower, or whatever you really want to kind of describe it as, that they're watching. They have every screen right in front of them. So we're like, okay, I guess we're probably not going to meet the Loki variant. And at first we do, but we don't, which I thought was very interesting. I wouldn't say it was scary, but it was definitely like, okay, which essentially was that the Loki variant was, I forget the exact terminology, but basically like putting on spells to be able to to talk to Loki, while using agents, while also using people who were for some reason in the market during that time, etc. Which allowed for, I thought which was a very interesting conversation. It was very cool to watch, like how the debate was going. And I thought the actors and actresses who were in this did a phenomenal job of like totally changing.
I thought the same.
I was like, wow,
yes.
Like I believe this. Like a lot of times that happens, you're like, okay, whatever, like sure. But like in this moment, I was like, okay, this Loki variant is literally now this person.
I agree. I totally agree. Yeah, you can't. It's difficult to be Loki, to be Tom Hiddleston, and I believe, okay, that's that person.
Right. So I thought that was really cool. And then like I said at the very beginning when we talked about Loki, they do find Agent, again, is it C-20? I think is C-20, who's basically hiding away or had been tied up for whatever reason, and they just keep saying it's real, and we're like, okay, what does that mean? It makes us a little bit more terrified as Loki is talking to Loki variant. He's getting beat up by multiple characters. He gets beat up basically or talked to by a Southern guy, by somebody who worked at the store, and it sets up what was very, very interesting, and toward the end, where the Loki variant is in fact revealed to be Lady Loki, which was not, I should say, like I saw that and I wasn't like, oh my gosh, who would have thought? Like everybody knew that at some point Lady Loki or a Loki variant was going to be, talked about. I think that Lady Loki was probably talked more than any other, in my opinion. I would say like that was probably the one that was discussed the most.
Yeah,
so
I
I wasn't
agree with that.
shocked, but I was very surprised and excited on how the reveal came. I would say, like, it almost felt like the end of a movie, even though we're only 2 episodes in.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll actually, something that I read about this morning and that was reported on is, and I'm pulling it up here really quick. Apparently in the credits, in the Spanish dub of the credits, the variant is listed as having the name Sylvie.
Okay.
Let me see. Yeah, okay. In the Castilian dub of the credits, it's like in the English version of the credits, it says like the variant and the actress's name. But in another version, it'll say Sylvie. And apparently Sylvie is a character from the Marvel universe.
Yeah. Sylvie
And,
Lushton.
I think you're right. I think
Yeah.
you're right. And I believe too, she's from Oklahoma, which is one of the places that was visited in episode 1.
Yeah, that's right. It was like in the 1800s.
Uh-huh.
Huh. Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was Salina, Oklahoma was the
That's right.
exact
Yes.
location.
Yes.
Huh. Interesting.
So yeah, not really sure what that means just yet. I'm sure we'll develop theories about that in the days to come.
Yeah. And I thought that it was interesting because essentially Loki's kind of having this conversation with Lady Loki back and forth. And essentially he kind of says, hey, like, I'm looking to overthrow the timekeepers. I want to work with you. Like, I want to work with you. I'm going to figure out what all of this kind of means. I'm going to figure out why we're here. And the first line of dialogue that she has is that this isn't about you. So again, I think it's kind of showing there's a deeper purpose to this show. That line of dialogue basically just kind of indicates and shows us for the future, like, hey, this isn't about Loki finding a Loki variant. This isn't about maybe even Loki himself. It's actually about, obviously it's about Loki and it will remain on Loki in some form or fashion, but it's indicating that, hey, this show is bigger than you might think that it is, which I thought was reassuring. It was also kind of known, but it was a good way to do it. And I think that line, while not long, speaks for what will be the rest of the series, which I was very excited about. But I thought that the entire interaction of them inside the store was one of my favorites, one of my favorite TV show moments that we've had of Marvel, without a doubt. Like, I thought it was slightly creepy, yet also very interesting, but it contains the mystery element, which I love in TV shows, and what it seems to be that Loki is also trying to become as well.
I agree. Yeah, managed to accomplish a lot of things in a very compelling way.
That's a good way to say it. Yeah. And obviously, if you've seen it, if you've seen the very end, it kind of leaves us on another big cliffhanger, because these reset charges, which it seems as if, based on what they've talked about, that Lady Loki, or the Loki variant, has been grabbing, is setting up something bigger. So basically, throughout the entirety of this store, I mean, I don't know how many reset charges there are, but there had to be a good 40, 50, 60 of these. These all kind of use the same means of travel that the TVA uses, which is like, I hate not knowing all the terms, but like the orange box that basically comes up and allows for people to go from one universe to the next. All of these disappear to another one, to different locations, which kind of sets up apparently the plan that's been in place for a very long time. And now we're kind of figuring out what, like, we're kind of getting into the show now. It's like, okay, now we know what's going on. And the trailers we saw when all these branches were beginning, you know, the what's the exact word I'm looking for? Kind of the primary video or aspect that we got when all the branches are kind of going away from the primary timeline, and the agents, I guess you could say, or the workers who are in the TVA are freaking out. They're calling it a number of different things. I forget what they called it, like a 303, or I forget the exact term. I looked it up right before we came on in the show. I forget.
Did you say it was like a 000?
000, that's what it was. And then one guy just takes over and says, hey, basically, someone bombed the sacred timeline, which I thought was a way better way to say it. It kind of, again, gives us the terminology while also explaining it. So that appears what Lady Loki's goal was the whole time, was to bomb the sacred timeline. So now we have all kinds of different branches. And then we are in another scene where we're looking at a monitor and we have different locations to where all of these branches are going. So I don't know how many branches there are because it just kept going while we were off screen, but I'm going to list a few of the locations that we're going to, and they're all specific. So there are dates, there is a time, and there is locations listed. And I guess I'll go through these really quick. So we see Vormir, we see Thornton, USA, Cookville, USA, Asgard, Rome, Sakar, Barachara, Porvoo, Finland, Ego, Titan, New York, Tokyo, Hala, Kingsport, USA, Xandar, Beijing, and I think the last one was Madrid, before we looked back at Renslayer, who was reacting to this in terror, probably wondering how the Timekeeper is going to take this. Maybe she has no idea how to communicate to the Timekeeper, so maybe she's very confused because she has no idea how to communicate to them. Maybe they actually don't exist, so she's like, oh crap, now this is all on me. So that was, I thought, an amazing kind of way to set us in motion for the next episode. And then also Loki decides to follow Lady Loki to wherever that she is going. And again, that's kind of his decision to branch away from the TVA and to kind of follow his own path to figure out what's going on. So a lot of different directions that we're going. Like I said, the sacred timeline is in shambles. Loki has made his decision, what I'm assuming is to follow Lady Loki, while the TVA is like, okay, we're very messed up. We're not well off right now.
And on that note, a couple of those locations really have my attention.
Yeah.
For example, I believe you said Vormir is one of them.
Yep.
Vormir, of course, is from Infinity War and Endgame, where Thanos threw Gamora off to get the Soul Stone,
right,
and where Black Widow sacrificed herself.
Yes.
And if you recall, in some of the trailers for Loki, it looked like Loki was talking to Black Widow on Vormir. Like, if you go back and watch that, like,
there's speculation about that. Yeah.
Right. And of course, that's the one of the locations of one of the Infinity Stones. And I know that right now they're just like rocks in a drawer, apparently in the TVA.
Right.
But I don't think Marvel would talk about or bring up the Infinity Stones if they weren't going to have an impact later. Like,
Yeah.
why would you just drop that bomb and leave it?
Mhm.
So something's happening there. Also, I think you said Sakaar is one of them too.
Yes.
Sakaar, of course, is from Thor Ragnarok. And on Sakaar, it's very well known that time flows differently there, just like what they say with the TVA.
Interesting.
And of course, Loki has been to Sakaar before. Let's see, Ego's other one. That's the planet from Guardians 2. There's a lot of places we haven't heard mentioned in MCU. Yeah, Titan, of course, Thanos' home planet.
And
so a lot of places.
We know how many Infinity Stones are in New York as well.
Right. So true.
Wait, are all the Infinity Stones? Hold on, I'm trying to think of where the Infinity Stones are when we start off in game, like where they go. Because obviously there's 3 in New York. There's one on Vormir. Where's the other one? Is it with the Timekeeper? Isn't that right?
With the Timekeeper.
Or the Collector. I'm sorry.
Oh, the Collector. The Collector. I'm with you. Yes, one's with the Collector.
I'm trying to think right now myself. Are all the locations for where the Infinity Stones are at are on
I
this
think
monitor?
the other one's Morag.
Morag.
That's where we first see Star-Lord.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So let me see. It was Morag on this list. Did we say that?
I don't remember. Take a look. Yeah, look.
Well, the first one I actually did mention. I missed a few of these. The first one was Phang Ma, Vietnam, Lisbon, Portugal. Did not mention those. So we have Vormir, like I said, Asgard, Sakaar, Barachara, Ego, Titan, Hala, Xandar. Yeah, which again, most of them at least are on there. So
right.
That is maybe something to think about. I don't know if that's something that I don't know if we're going to dive into another Infinity Stone type of situation, or not Infinity Stone, but I don't know if we're going to jump into this aspect again, but it very well could have something to do with it in some form or fashion.
Could be.
And
this is a total.
And this variant of Loki has never seen those stones before. Like him seeing those in the drawer.
That is true.
He's like, what the heck?
True.
Like, okay, I'm seeing Infinity Stones. I'm not common to seeing all of these by any means.
Right. No, I hadn't thought about that, but you're absolutely correct. And this is a total stretch, but the fact they blew up the timeline by episode 2, like, what do they have in store for the next couple of episodes?
Yeah.
And everyone knows that the MCU is heading for the multiverse with Spider-Man coming out this December and then Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. What if we see a couple of those elements in this show? That would just blow everyone's mind.
Yeah.
And just, I don't think they would do that yet, but what if they did? So.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess that kind of leads us now to, before we round out the episode, just quickly giving thoughts on episode 3, like what we think could set up in episode 3. And I guess at the same time, maybe just kind of pointing out a few things that we think are interesting to look at, maybe things that people aren't noticing or keeping in mind heading into episode 3. I will say this definitely took a different direction than I thought that this episode would, or at least I could say it's at the middle of episode 2 as well. I also did not think that we were going to head in this direction. I didn't know if we were going to meet the variant. I thought that we would have this moment where it's variant revealed, boom, we're gone, which it was similar to that, but I did not know that Loki would be essentially following Lady Loki while also having the timeline exploding. I thought that was maybe going to be kind of more in the middle or maybe kind of toward the end of the episode. And then that kind of sets up the movies to discover the Multiverse of Madness, because maybe this is what sparks it. So again, for this already to be happening at this point, it's hard to point out where we're going to be, but I guess this next episode is going to start with the TVA trying to or this next episode, I should say, with the TVA trying to figure out, because they're sending agents everywhere. We see Renslayer also kind of get in motion to try to figure out what's happening. Mobius knows that Loki is with Lady Loki, And there could be maybe in this next episode charges against Mobius, because throughout this entire episode, the first one and the second one, Renslayer's been basically saying, hey, if this does not work out, it's all on you. So this could have complications for him. And if Loki's aware of that, because of his relationship with Mobius, maybe that is what allows for Loki to come back to try and save him. I don't know.
I totally agree with that.
I think I totally agree with potential with there. Potential. I think
that's the only thing we can honestly count on to see. Everything else, I have no idea, because of, again, how quickly they're moving through the story. But yeah, I think Mobius is going to get in trouble, and I think that Loki's gonna, now that he's somewhat redeemed in a way, in that he has faced his past, you know. I think that he's gonna make a call to save the guy who put some confidence in him. Yeah. Because really, all Loki's ever wanted is for someone to believe in him.
Right.
So, yeah, I think we're gonna see that. Yeah,
like I said, there's so many different directions the show could go, and I think that, like I said, we both mentioned this already. We're both very surprised, and I imagine that most people who are listening to this as well are very surprised too. Like where we're already at in the second episode. Granted, there are 6 episodes, so it's like, you know, we're nearly in the middle of this. But if you're kind of comparing it to a movie, it's like, okay, we've already got the good stuff, and we're like, you know, a good 30 to 45 minutes in, which at times, you know, does not occur. Like, you know, at times movies can be very slow to be drawn out, but I think that it's very encouraging that we're already seeing this kind of stuff this early, because I think it very well could be, you know, for a regular TV show to be like, okay, episode 1, boom, lots of news. Episode 2, okay, let's take a dip a little bit. We'll have some fun. We'll do some character development. Episode 3, okay, now we'll start to figure out, you know, how the show goes, how things are kind of lining out. Episode 4, kind of doing some more character development, ultimately setting up the final episode. Episode 5 ends with a cliffhanger on what the finale will be. Then episode 6 is the finale. But this, I feel like, is totally different in that, honestly, the second episode kind of felt almost like a finale, which I thought was really cool. Like it felt like there was a lot of momentum behind it, despite how little that we've been with a lot of the characters so far.
I agree with that. I think that's a very good way of putting it. Yeah, that could have easily been the finale of any TV show.
Yeah.
And it's only episode 2.
Yeah. I think it's really encouraging. I'm excited. I guess you could say kind of for the future of Loki, which I know we'll be talking about episode 3 next week, which is going to be a lot of fun. But again, I really don't know where to go with this, and where we're going to be headed. I know, kind of closing notes, I was really liking the buddy cop angle, and I hope that we do see more of that, because I think that Loki's relationship with Mobius is one of my favorite things throughout this, is them figuring things
100%.
out while us not knowing what's going on. And then I forget what I was getting ready to ask you. Oh, I think this is kind of what is going to be the majority question throughout the remainder of this, or at least for the next week. Will we see more variants? Do you think that we will see another variant of Loki? Is Lady Loki the only one that we're going to see? Again, Mobius has talked about how there are others. There are more Loki variants than they've ever seen of other people who've had variants, and no variant is the same. So knowing that information, they wanted to tell us that for a reason. Do you think that there are multiple? Maybe Lady Loki could be joining with the other variants. Maybe the other variants have been working together to try and set up what we're seeing, but we've only seen Lady Loki so far. I know I've just asked everything, but do you think that there is the chance that we see more, considering that we are in episode 2, still have 4 left?
I do. Again, like you said, I don't think they would have mentioned it for no reason.
Right.
Which, I don't know. I'm curious about that, because like the whole Lady Loki, Sylvie, whatever is going on with that. I need a reason to be invested in multiple Lokis. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's intriguing, but you gotta give me a bit more than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we'll see them. I just hope there is a really good reason behind it, which of course the show so far has been fantastic. So there's no reason for me not to think that, but I don't know where they're going to go with it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think personally, along with that as well, I think that there will be multiple variants. I don't know how many. Again, I know there's like, I want to say there's like 4 other ones that are more discussed. from what's been talked about, like, you know, an older Loki, a young Loki, a lady Loki, and then there's there's all kinds of different Lokis that could be out there. So it would not surprise me if they're going to kind of follow the same angle, that evil is not necessarily evil, that the Lokis may seem evil, but they're actually not. The TVA is the evil one. But I think overall, we'll see more. And then I guess too, I'm also very interested to see, which I don't want to be teased by this too much, but I am interested in what's going on with Miss Minutes, her involvement with the TVA. We're getting like little
Yes.
teases for her. There's been a lot of talk on like how maybe she could be a bigger person in all of this. Maybe she's more of a surprise character. Maybe she leads the TVA versus the, you know, multiple Loki variants. Yeah, I think it's just going to be this continuous battle between the Loki variants and the TVA, with different characters stepping up, and maybe Loki and Mobius kind of in the middle of it, trying to repair what's going on. I don't know. It's there's a lot of different directions with it, but I guess that's going to kind of do it. I think we've covered everything very well. Obviously very excited about Loki episode 3. Episode 2 ranked very, very highly in my books. I would say it's probably one of my favorite overall Disney Plus episodes that we have from anything so far, in my opinion. Where does this rank highly for you like that? Or is it, you know, it's just a good episode? Or do you think do you agree with me that it possibly is the best one that we've seen in all of Disney Plus? Am I too far with that?
No, I don't think so. I'm not sure where you like stand on this. At the moment, I feel like Loki is my favorite Marvel Disney Plus show. It's beating
Yes.
WandaVision and Falcon Winter Soldier for me. Now, grant that can change. I think my favorite Disney Plus episode will probably always be the end of Mandalorian when Luke Skywalker shows up.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. I don't know how I forgot about that one. That's fair.
It's all good. But I don't know if anything can quite top that, just from like a nostalgic point of view for me. But yeah, this episode definitely is up there for me for sure. Isn't my top yet, but I was surprised by it. I was impressed by it. And I think I was kind of expecting a bit more of a filler after how much was delivered in episode 1.
Yeah.
And the fact they didn't do that, and again, basically gave me a finale level kind of cliffhanger and gave me so much more to chew on. I'm very optimistic. However, I do feel like WandaVision kind of let me down a little bit.
Yeah.
It has me a bit jaded. And because I loved WandaVision, but I didn't feel like it was a strong finish personally.
It's true.
Loki... Yeah, so Loki is like delivering, you know what I mean? But can it stick the landing? I'm afraid to rank anything just yet until I know it can stick the landing.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's I think that's the best way to kind of end out. Is very impressed with what we've seen from Loki. Very impressed with what we've seen from Disney Plus. All the different stories that are kind of going on throughout the week. But I think it's fair to say that Loki episode 2 takes the headline, and it leaves us questioning: will episode 3 continue to treat us the way that we think that it can, or is it just going to be like a normal TV show for the most part, and kind of level out a little bit, kind of get to the point where it's like, okay, like I said, time for character development, time for things to kind of iron out. Let's slow down the pace. I hope that doesn't happen, but at the same time, I don't know how we can continue to advance from here. It's like almost like in the middle of a song when like the bass or the primary like chorus of the song is get ready to drop, and you're like, oh, it's gonna keep going, and it's like, is it gonna do that, or is it just gonna kind of, you know, level out for a moment? We really don't know. But this was fun. I really enjoyed talking over things here on Real Conversation. Any closing thoughts, anything to say for our first episode?
This was a ton of fun. I mean, this is what you and I kind of do in our free time anyway, is talk about what we've been watching lately and discuss and analyze. So it was really fun to do this in a podcast format.
And believe it or not, it's actually, I feel like, shorter than our normal conversations are.
It probably is, honestly, and a little less random. We actually tried to stick to a bit of a format this time. Not as many rabbit trails as we're accustomed to. But yeah, I'm excited though to get to hear from some other people, from our listeners, to kind of hear their theories, and to kind of, I mean, we're doing real conversations. I like to hear conversations from other people, and part of the fun of Disney Plus, I feel like MCU and Star Wars, is the conversations that it allows you to have with your friends and with other fans. So this was kind of just an expression of that. And I'm excited for next week to see what happens with Loki. And I'm excited to talk with you again next week.
Absolutely. That sounds good. Sounds good. Like I said, perfect description, real conversation, not just us, but also listeners out there. Feel free to get involved. Like I said, feel free to follow us on social media. You can find us at Real Convo on both Twitter and Instagram. I'm actually going to be making a YouTube channel right after this goes up. So that's where many will be listening to this. I'm going to also do our best to try to get this up on Spotify and iTunes if you're not already there. But with that, you can just always know that we will be back next week on Wednesday discussing Loki episode 3, along with all the other wonderful things that we talked about. So with that, thank you everybody for tuning in. We will see you next week on another episode of Real Conversation.